千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. Let's go to Tao Te Ching 21. As usual, we will begin this chapter with a look at its title. Follow the Tao. 从道章. This title has special significance. This is the one where Lao Tzu spells out the Tao metaphor in no uncertain terms, that the Tao is a path to walk. To follow the Tao is to walk the path in order to live a fulfilling and harmonious life. This is not merely about adopting a set of beliefs or rituals, but about aligning yourself in the right direction, headed toward the right destination. This also doesn't mean passively accepting everything that comes your way on the path that you have chosen, which is to say, there's no blind acceptance of things that happen in the course of your journey through life. It does mean cultivating a deep understanding about how things work, recognizing the patterns that are everywhere in the Tao, and utilizing your understanding of the patterns to help you make choices in accordance with Tao principles. And the last point about follow the Tao is that the Tao is not just a path. It is the best path, because it is whichever path that will lead to a state of natural ease and well-being, like walking downhill instead of struggling uphill. When you can align yourself with that, things will simply flow more smoothly. Problems will simply seem less overwhelming, which means you will be able to experience inner peace. So let's take a look at Tao Te Ching 21, the chapter itself. The appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao. The Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. So unclear, so indistinct. Within it, there is image. So indistinct, so unclear. Within it, there is substance. So deep, so profound. Within it, there is essence. Its essence is supremely real. Within it, there is faith. From ancient times to the present, its name never departs. To observe the source of all things. How do I know the nature of the source? With this. So this chapter, this verse, is a good sample of the flavor of Lao Tzu's writing, the way he taught, the way he spoke. It is very different than the quotes that you see online attributed to Lao Tzu. Most of those quotes are not from Lao Tzu at all, but possibly from some other source, but then written as if it was from Lao Tzu. What Lao Tzu actually wrote, what he talked about, are not always easy for the modern sensibilities to understand. But with explanation, everything becomes very clear. So now, what we want to do before anything else is to scan through the chapter, look for characters that repeat themselves in the same position as a way to help us identify the poetic structure that usually is never talked about, usually is hidden from view. But now we will approach as if we have X-ray vision. So let's start with that. Looking at the first few lines, one thing stands out. You can readily see that the first characters of line 2 and line 4 are the same. And in line 4, the same character also appears in the third position. So right off the bat, this suggests we are starting out with the first 4 lines in this AB structure, which Lao Tzu often uses. Before we actually make that determination, though, let us look further down to see if we can confirm. So, scanning through the characters from line 5 and down, we see repetitions, but in a different position, a different kind of repetition, starting from line 5. The same character appears twice per line, and this is repeated in odd number lines 5, 7, and 9. So does this mean we now have another repeating structure? Well, one thing we can tell is that because the repetitions are different, we can identify a dividing line between 4 and 5. And with that line in place, that definitely makes it easier to see. But what about below that? Well, there is actually more. Let's examine not just the odd number lines, but the even number lines as well. By that, I am referring to 6, 8, and 10. So look at those lines, and I think you can easily tell they are repeating characters as well. And it's not ending at 10 either. There's more. So I've marked the repetitions so they're easier to see. So the repetitions actually extend to the first character as well. But I'm marking out the middle two to highlight them. The two characters are translated respectively as within. That's the 中 character. And there is the character after that, 有. This actually reveals the structure which extends beyond line 10 down to line 12. So here's how it really looks. Now the overall poetic construction is revealed. We have three sections: the introduction from 1 to 4, the main body of the chapter, and that's from 5 to 12, and the conclusion, which goes from 13 to 17. So with these identified, I think we are now ready to explore this chapter line by line. We'll start with the first line, and we'll start with the first character of the first line. This character is Kong. So the pinyin is K-O-N-G, and be careful, it is not pronounced Kong like King Kong. It's an O sound, Kong. In the ancient context, this character has two possible meanings. It can be a surname or it can mean great. In terms of a surname, Kong is actually the surname of Confucius. So Confucius is known as Kongzi, which means Master Kong. The second character is Master. The first one is the family name or the surname. In the context of greatness, the meaning is an unlimited emptiness. So Kong is close to Kong, meaning empty. The greatness is like the expansive and empty sky. So in modern Mandarin, this character is only used as a surname. The alternative meaning in ancient times about greatness, like the big empty skies, that meaning no longer used in modern Mandarin. This is one of the results of linguistic evolution that has taken place over thousands of years. Those who don't know about this aspect of linguistic evolution can easily misunderstand. Not knowing what to make of this chapter, they may assume that this line refers to Confucius, but it does not. Now, back in the days of Lao Tzu, legend has it that he knew Confucius as one of his students. This is different from what later generations thought of Confucius, seeing him as one of the great teachers. The perspective of Lao Tzu was that he's one of the disciples. So when Lao Tzu is talking about great virtues aligned with the Tao, he was not referring to Confucius at all. We can explore what he actually meant by looking at the entire line. The appearance of great virtue. So what we'll do is break down the characters one by one. So as I mentioned, the first character, it's great. it's not surname, but the meaning is greatness. The second character, that is the same character as the middle one in 道德经, it just means virtue. The third character is the apostrophe S. So oftentimes in translation, it is translated as of, OF, with the two parts reversed. And then the last character there, 容, it means appearance. So if we were to transcribe this in the same sequence as the appearance of the characters, we get the great virtues appearance. The interpretation of this line is about the appearance of those who possess great virtues. Such virtues impact the world in a positive and beneficial way. And supporting this particular interpretation is that in all the chapters prior to this, Lao Tzu made many references about the ancient masters, the masters of antiquity, those who came before him. So it would seem to make sense that when he's talking about the appearance of great virtues, he's talking about the same thing. There is an alternative interpretation to this line. It's not about the great sages of old, but about the myriad things all following the Tao. The idea in interpreting these lines is that the myriad things make their appearance in accordance with the changing of seasons. So it is an appearance that is devoid of virtue. Line 1, because they are simply following the Tao. Line 2. Now, I favor the previous interpretation because we have seen Lao Tzu referencing the ancient masters. So for those ancient masters, the virtues that they exhibited, first of all, those virtues encompassed every aspect of life. And at the same time, they were virtues that were mystical in nature, not just practical. And these virtues came out of the emptiness of the Tao, like the openness of the sky. I say that such people, such virtues impact the world in a positive and beneficial way, while the occurrence of them will be rare in history. But their virtues have a very lasting, far-lasting impact than anything else we can see in human history. The impact can be transformative and can set an example for everyone to follow. We only have to look at humanity's most revered figures, like Jesus and the Buddha and many others, to see the truth of this. In general, anybody who comes into contact with someone who has authentic virtues cannot help but be changed by the experience. So to illustrate this, I'm recalling to mind this exchange from thousands of years ago. There was a disciple who studied under a Tao master. One of his friends was curious and asked him, "What is your master like? Is he a knowledgeable man?" The disciple said, "My master isn't merely knowledgeable, he is a sage." His friend asked, "What is the depth of your master's wisdom?" The disciple said, "I do not know." His friend asked, "If you do not know, then why do you say he is a sage?" The disciple replied, because my master's mind is like the ocean. I do not know how deep the ocean is. I only know that it is very deep. In comparison, I, on the other hand, am a normal person. If I were to drink several cups of water, my stomach would be full. So my capacity is finite. When I compare myself with my master, I can see the limits of my capacity for wisdom, but I cannot see his limit. So this is one example out of many referring to how the ancient masters were, the impact that they had, and we see that in our world as well. So moving on to the second line, line 2 follows only the Tao. So the appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao. Breaking down the 4 characters, the first character there is only. Second character, that is a character for the Tao. It matches the second character in the first line, which is De, which is virtue. The third character of this line is. And then the last character is follow. Taking the last character there, the fourth character, and then appending the second character will get us the chapter title. So the meaning of this line is that those who possess great virtues follow only the Tao. Of course, we know they may not call it the Tao. Tao is only a label. But regardless of the name that it is given, what it represents is the best path to follow in life. So as an example, in the Bible, we have read that Jesus refers to his way as the way, the truth, and the life. And then there's also the expression, God's great way. It's a Christian concept referring to the idea that God's way is the best way to live. Therefore, the Bible describes God's way as perfect, trustworthy, and enlightening. So these first 2 lines, the appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao, they set up the primary question for this chapter. What is the path or the way that the virtuous ones follow? If we understand that, then we simply follow the same path, the same way. Now we move to line 3 and line 4. The Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. So at the surface level, we can see what Lao Tzu is expressing. If we treat this mysterious Tao as a thing, we will find it difficult to grasp. After all, the Tao is not a physical object that we can see and touch. It's a mental paradigm, more like a concept or an idea, like a principle. You can write it down, but you can't see the thing itself. A thought, we know, is not well defined, like an object. It has no form, no shape, no substance, no weight, no dimension, no size. So in describing the Tao, Laozi uses the word indistinct. The Tao has no shape, form, boundaries, or dimensions. Laozi also uses the word unclear. The Tao is not clearly defined, nor is it completely understood. So the significant point here that I want to draw everybody's attention to is the absence of deification when it comes to talking about the Tao. The Tao has no shape or form, boundaries, dimensions, etc., because it is not a deity. One cannot draw or paint or sculpt the likeness of the Tao. One can depict symbolically, like the yin and yang symbol that we often use. But even as we draw that, we know the Tao doesn't really look like that. It's just a way to represent it. Much like a mathematical equation in physics, that in itself is describing an idea, a natural law. It is not what the natural law actually looks like. The natural law does not have a shape or form like a thing. Now, the ancients, when it came to spiritual matters, they habitually assigned everything beyond the physical world to gods. This is where I link up this chapter with the previous one. In 20, Laozi spent a lot of time talking about the way people were in his days versus the way that he was and how he was different. The same radical difference can be seen in the depiction of spirituality or the divine. The ancient sages, including Laozi himself, were much wiser in dealing with the Tao without trying to turn it into some sort of a personified divine entity. So that's what I mean by being radically different from how most people thought in ancient times. These sages observed heaven and earth. Through their observations, they realized existence was far vaster than they could perceive with their senses. They could also sense that there was a great unseen forces behind all of it. And whatever this unseen force was, it was orchestrating everything. Since the dawn of humanity, people have been trying to come up with a good way and a way to describe and understand the divine. In that sense, Laozi and the Tao masters before him, they were well ahead of their time. They thought in ways different from most. And I think now may be a good opportunity for us, for you and I, to catch up with these ancient masters in the way that we think as well. With better understanding, you and I may be able to come up with an improved description of the divine, and also without injecting human thoughts and emotions into something that is far greater than us. And our observations can tell us that there are some aspects of the Tao in action, like the working of karma. We can see those, but we can't see everything that the Tao does. Nevertheless, the Tao is not completely beyond human comprehension. The parts that you and I can figure out and apply, they become very useful to us. And just like the ancient masters, there's a lot more than we can see. There is always more that we can learn. So let me use some examples to describe the differences in the ancient mindsets that we're talking about. In an authentic tradition of the Tao, it is said, Tao fei jiao ye, which just means the Tao is not a religion. Some may assume the Tao is religious in nature. But if it were religious, people would not find it so indistinct and unclear. It would be much more well-defined. Religious practices would be spelled out. So, according to the authentic Tao tradition passed down since ancient times, the ancient sages envisioned the Tao as a way of life that encompasses all aspects of life. This is a perspective that includes religion, but also everything else other than religion. So let me explain by bringing up the conventional mind. What most people thought back in the ancient times, but also today, is worship, associating that with spirituality and the divine. It is much easier to understand. Why is it easier? Well, when you have a human-like deity with human-like emotions, reactions, it is much easier for people to understand how they can deal or transact with this entity. For instance, they can see prayers are not unlike human conversation. So people will say, talk to God, talk to the Buddha, etc. It's a ready-made reference that one can get into and instantly get an idea how to proceed. And there's always a specific place that they go to, whether it's a temple or a church, where the worshiping activities, the religious rituals can take place. There's, of course, nothing wrong with that. It is a convenience. The point to be made here, though, is that having a place that's being assigned that is very specific, it makes it easier for everybody. What about the Tao? Well, it's not about worship, it's about walking the path. So the Tao paradigm, to walk the best possible path for yourself, that metaphor may be too abstract. People may not be sure how to deal with that. After all, the deity has human-like reactions, can be dealt with like a very powerful human, but the path is just the path. There's no worshiping the path. There's only following the path. The sages followed the Tao as the path for themselves. We follow the example set by the sages if we cannot understand the Tao directly. The sages themselves, they're certainly not deities. Subsequent generations made Lao Tzu a deity, but we should know that they really aren't. They're human beings, just like you and me. So there's no need to pray for them, pray to them, and they aren't listening. They cannot provide us with some sort of divine protection. The only protection is what we create for ourselves by being aligned with the Tao. And it is the only way for the sages to help us. They point us in the right direction, but we still need to do the walking. So the emulation, when we talk about emulating the Tao and embodying the characteristics, that's what we mean. Follow in the footsteps of the sages. Now, the Tao is everywhere, so there's no specific place that is better or worse than any other place to be when it comes to carrying out associated activities with that metaphor. The Tao paradigm is about observing, experiencing, living, and connecting with the Tao everywhere and anywhere. Second aspect of it are the rules. So the conventional mind will tend toward the rules because it's a lot easier. There's nothing that you have to think about or figure out for yourself. All you have to do is follow the rules. And you should not question the rules. That's uniformly true of all the religions that human beings have devised. What about the Tao? Instead of rules, there are concepts to absorb, to understand, to realize. Understanding is the key. It is not as easy. There are no rules or strictures within easy reference that you must obey. There are concepts that you have to figure out for yourself. In that process, you have to ask questions. Questions are not forbidden. Questions are encouraged. And the correct understanding will lead you naturally to the right path. Lastly, for religious practices, there is a focus on the hereafter. There's teachings about salvation, earning your right to enter heaven, and the idea that you will be judged. How about the Tao? Well, instead of focusing on the hereafter, the Tao emphasizes present moment mindfulness, being present, being here. What am I doing right now? What is going on right now? Within me, within my mind, and also what is going on all around me. And as for the judgment aspect of it, instead of being judged, you must be the judge of everything that is applicable to your own life. You be the judge, not you will be judged. So all of this are aspects of why the Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. From the perspective of most people, that's definitely true. It is not what they're familiar with. It's not necessarily what they're comfortable with. So having talked about this, we are now getting close to the end of our time together today. We should now be jumping to the summary to summarize the first part of this chapter. So this particular chapter is heavily describing and getting into the intricacies of the Tao itself as a metaphor, as the metaphysical overarching principle of reality. However you think of it, because it is all of that and more, you are a manifestation of the Tao. Therefore, you reflect the characteristics of the Tao in your essence. This logically follows from the previous chapter 20, where Lao Tzu drew a connection between himself as being like an infant and the nourishing mother that was the Tao. And as I mentioned a couple of times, your human intelligence, your sentience, your consciousness, your self-awareness, these are all reflections of the meta consciousness that is called universal intelligence. And as we contemplate the Tao further, there are patterns. We'll talk about this more. This is a big topic, but one of the primary patterns in the Tao is the circle. So before we reconvene to discuss that, I would like to invite everyone between now and the next meeting to look for circular exchanges or karmic energy in your life. What have you seen where you can tell something that is good going out comes back as something that is even better, and something that is negative going out will also come back as something that is multiplied in negativity. And speaking of cycles, another way to look at the circular nature or the circular pattern of the Tao is to consider the cycles of life or the seasons of life. Think in terms of your history, perhaps your career, and look for recurring patterns there. And one more, your ability to create. Just like the Tao, you had the power to bring things into reality. The Tao is the source of living things and non-living things. You have the ability, the same ability from the same source to create. And I want to encourage you to recognize this and maximize that creative energy. The question to ask, what would you manifest next in your life? What would you like to create? And before you get to that, initiate the action of creation by creating a plan for that manifestation. So I want to suggest that as a homework assignment. And now, share the Tao. The easiest way to access Tao resources is to visit my author website, dereklin.com. There, you can click on links and go to the webpage where you will find everything listed, such as Taoism.net, with information about the Tao and also about this meeting. Our Facebook community where you can ask questions or discuss your thoughts on the Tao with others. Our YouTube channel where you can watch recordings of all our previous meetings. My Amazon author page where you can find books and audiobooks for your continuing exploration. You can also go directly with the web address dereklin.com/links, as you can see. You can use these resources to share the Tao with the people you know who may be interested. When you see the benefits of Tao cultivation in your life, you can share your experience with others through your comments in Facebook or YouTube. If you find my books or audiobooks to be helpful, you can post your reviews on Amazon to help others discover the Tao. This is the path that I am on, so I can say sharing the Tao has benefited me personally in every aspect of life. I would like to invite you to come along with me to share the Tao. Let us travel together on the path in the journey of life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.